Hi, I'm Wade from Superior Slushies. Today we're going to do a short video on how to do your weekly service and cleaning of your slush machine. What we're going to start with, first of all, although we're starting with an empty machine, we're going to talk about what have you got to do. Now, the first thing you want to do is on that 7-day weekly service that you're going to do is discard the product that you've got left in your machine. Easy to do when you've got one of these water bottles. You're simply just going to empty out the balance of whatever's in there. Now, it's not always going to come out easily because it could be partially frozen. Throw a bucket of warm water in the top of your machine and drain that out with it. It'll make life a lot easier. You may have to turn your augers on from the side of the machine in this case, and then by that spinning as well, it'll help melt whatever ice is in there and get the rest of the product out. What we do to make sure you get the last drips out of the machine is lean the machine forward and then empty out the balance. By doing that, you'll get out the last drips of the machine and it won't end up all over the front of your shirt. So once you're happy now that your machine is empty, you can now remove your bowls. Clip up the bowl, however that mechanism might be, and then pull it forward towards you. You may have to twist a little bit and it'll get it off the seal. The better your seals are, the more it's going to hold on. The next step is remove your auger setup. Now, your auger is normally got a rubber or silicone seal at the end of the auger. That there is the auger shaft, that there is the auger bushing, and this is the evaporator unit. Here we're going to remove the rear seal, a really important part. And in some cases, we've seen people grease these rubber seals. The rear seals don't need to be lubricated at all. In fact, by lubricating them, you degrade their efficiency. You want them nice and supple and clean, and that will grab onto the bowl and give you a leak-free surface. Now that you've got the machine unassembled, the only difference between, let's say, a traditional machine like this with a drive shaft and there's another type of machine style that has a magnetic drive. Now, the difference between the two we'll show you in a second, but all it means is inside this evaporator, there is a second auger on the inside that you'll pull out. It also won't have that seal around there because it's magnetically driven instead of using a shaft. With these pieces, you first want to remove your auger shaft seal. There's going to be some residual grease that you've applied. So get rid of that with a paper towel. That is ready for washing, and so is that. Both of these items can go into a commercial dishwasher. Next, put in your commercial dishwasher or wash by hand your rear seal. Any extra pieces, depending on the type of machine that might be lodged in your bowl, remove those as well. Again, they can go into your dishwasher. Remove your tap assembly. Every machine's going to be slightly different on how to remove the tap assembly. So depending on your machine, just remove it as per the instructions. Handles, they can go in the dishwasher. However, the high heat in a dishwasher tends to make them a little more brittle, and it also can discolor the plastic of the handles. You might want to wash them by hand. Springs, they can go into your dishwasher. Where you've got a machine that has a rubber plunger and a rubber O-ring or silicone base on a plunger like this, don't put these into a dishwasher. Wipe the grease off, first of all, and then wash them by hand. By washing these by hand, you won't degrade these particular seals, and they'll last forever and a day. We say change them after 12 months, but if you put this into the dishwasher, you'll be replacing them every 2 months and you'll always have leaking taps. So that's something to consider. Other machines have also got new style. The newer machines have just a silicone plunger that attaches to the tap and plugs into a hole. You have other machines that have a single rubber stopper on the end of a stalk. They're all much the same, just wash them all by hand, because this is the place where it's not getting cold all the time unless you're dispensing, and that's where bacteria and black mold can grow. Make sure you clean it. It's going to be food safe for your clients, and it's also going to look much more appealing. Wash your bowls Now, if you've got a commercial dishwasher, you may be able to pop them in there depending on the size of your commercial dishwasher. Otherwise, you can wash them by hand. But bear in mind, if you look at that bowl there, it's got a white opaque look to it. Now this is a machine that's quite old and it's been in and out of that dishwasher a lot. Depending on the detergent that you use, it can make the polycarbonate bowls look a little opaque like that. Once the machine's full, it probably doesn't matter so much, but if you want to keep that crystal clear look of a slushy machine bowl, then wash it by hand. Always wash the inside of your tap channel here. Now, the easiest way to do that is to get yourself like a baby's bottle brush. Running that brush up and down with just some soapy water will clean that out, and then just give the bowl a thorough wash with soapy warm water and give it a rinse with warm water. So just to show you a different type of auger setup and where you should grease it, we're looking at here a machine with a magnetic drive system. Now the difference is you've got an inner auger inside the evaporator unit and an outer auger. Depending on your preference, but these particular machines also work very well, but in particular the ones that are made like this, that are made in Italy. So you can twist the outer auger to remove it, and then you pull your inner auger out. But be careful, you really want to get a good grip on it because that magnetic pull is really quite strong. Where you grease these machines is just inside here, because this is all a magnet inside and it's got a magnet from the motor that works on the outside of it to make it turn. So there's no moving parts that go through from the motor into the liquid itself. Add your silicone grease, just a slight light smear on the inside of there, and that's all that's required. But when you're reinserting it, keep a hold of this auger, because once you get close towards the back, the magnets are going to pull it in, and it's really easy to break the back of the machine just by letting it go. So hold it in and let it ease back in. Then to reassemble, you're just sticking that outer auger back on and screwing it round until you can see that it seats nice and firmly and evenly all the way around. And that is the difference between a machine that has a shaft and a machine that has a magnetic drive system. Now that you've washed all the components of your slush machine, you're ready to clean the machine itself. First, wipe off that grease. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Just give it a good wash over with that warm soapy water and make sure that you end up with a finish that's soap free. You can also use a tea towel after you finish just to make sure that that looks all nice, clean and shiny. Now you're ready to reassemble your machine. The first step to reassembling your machine is put your rear seal on. Now here's a little trick. When you're putting your bowl on to that rear seal, it can be a little bit tough to get it on. So the trick is wet the seal first. Make sure that it's damp all the way around, and also make sure that the bowl entry is also wet all the way around. It's going to make your life a lot easier, and that's why you don't need any lubricant. Second step is to start lubricating the machine. I tend to lubricate all the parts that need to be done so I can clean my hands straight after this. Now, this auger shaft, it's really critical to lubricate this area. The bushing there, which in this case is a white piece of plastic, is creating a barrier in between the shaft and the evaporator. Because no matter how minuscule the gap, as this turns around, there's going to be liquid that'll get in. So by using the food grade silicone lubricant and just putting a reasonable smear, probably thinner than what you would have as toothpaste, doesn't matter how ugly it is, mind you. That way, you'll keep the liquid from going into the evaporator unit there, and that'll save you money in the future. It'll also lubricate the auger seal, and that will also save you money because that can freely turn and it won't grab against the stainless steel. So as we're lubricating these parts, in this case, this plunger should also be lubricated. We'll lubricate it around the O-ring here. Make sure you've got clean hands when you're doing this, and around the bottom of the stopper. That'll take all the friction away when every time you open and close that tap over the next week, it'll take that friction away and make sure that these particular seals end up with a full 1 year of life. Next step, add your auger seal to your auger, push it in and make sure it's seated the way that it should be for your particular type of machine. Again, this step will be a little bit different from machines with a magnetic drive system, but we'll look at that in a minute. Now, turn your auger until it sits flush, the seal sits flush with the evaporator there, because it locks into place with the shaft. Any extra pieces that belong to the bowl that needs to go on first, add them now. So in this case, with this particular machine, it has an offset washer. So we'll add that in now. Slide your bowl on really carefully. Now, we're going to lift from the back just ever so slightly to line up the back of the bowl with the seal. And then I'm going to push it straight on, and you might need to give it a little wiggle. Pushing it in and then down, clipping those legs in. Now, one of the final steps is to reassemble your tap mechanism. You might also want to do this before you put the bowl on. Sometimes it's easier, it's your own preference. In this case, it needs the spring, it needs the plunger, and we line that plunger hole that's going to insert the tap at the same time. Pop the tap in and put in the pin to hold the handle. No matter what type of machine you've got, there'll be some kind of way to hold the tap in, whether it be a pin or whether it be a spring. Make sure you absolutely check this 100%, because a missing pin or a spring that's not inserted in the right way will end up being a catastrophe the first time you pull that tap. It'll end up with a whole bowl of slush all over the floor. One of the final things to check with your machine just before you start using it again for the week is the condenser unit. Now, the condenser unit, you might want to call it, it's very similar to a car radiator, and it's normally, in most cases, on most machines, on the left-hand side. The condenser unit in this case is in behind this grill. Now, I'm going to take the grill off to show you. You may not have to perform this task every week, but it's something you need to know about. Now, here we have the same machine with the grills off. You can see that this looks a little like a car radiator. Now, I've deliberately picked this machine to show you as it's an older machine. Look here, you can see damage that's been done to these fins. And you can also see a small amount of dust on there that tends to stick to the machine, especially if you're in an environment where you've got cooking oils, etc. This grill will become a little bit grease sticky. The more grease sticky it is, the more it's going to grab onto dirt and fluff that's in the air. To clean this, all you want to do is use a brush attachment to your vacuum cleaner, or even safer, use a paintbrush to brush down the dirt and have your vacuum nearby just to collect that dust as it comes out. You don't want to bend these fins. You want them to be as straight and as perfect as the day they came out of the factory. So the more care you take along the way, the better off that you'll be. So if your machine is not performing as expected, this is one of the things to check. Okay, well now that concludes how to do your weekly service. Remember, do your weekly service. Not only are you going to keep your product food safe, you're going to extend the life of your machine. And they're the most two important things to making a profit from your slush machine.